So Esther, right, go on then. I hope you don't mind. This is for school questions.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I'm Jay's next door neighbour, and at school we're doing about space. So we've come up with a few questions in class to ask you.
Okay. Are you going to report these back to your school then? Take
Yeah.
them back? Great.
So, firstly, would you recommend it as a career?
It's a great career. I wanted to do this since I was about 6 years old, and I was only 39 years old when I first made it to space. So it took me a long time to get there, and a lot of hard work, but it was so worth it.
Yeah.
To have the opportunity to go into space and to orbit the Earth, to see our planet, to experience zero gravity, so much fun. That people say, was it worth all that hard work and was it worth all the time? Oh, it was worth it 1,000,000 times over. So I would highly recommend this, especially for somebody your age or for your friends at school. You know, you're the generation that's going to Mars. I'm too old to go to Mars, but in about 25 years from now, we're going to send astronauts to the planet Mars. Could be you, could be one of your schoolmates. So I would highly recommend this career, especially for young students, just because I know we got some really exciting missions in the future that you can be a part of. And I'm jealous of you of your youth, because you'll get to do that while I'm too old. I can't go to Mars.
And so, if you could describe the experience in one word, what would you choose?
Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It's an awesome ride to space. 8.5 minutes to get up there. A lot of shaking and vibration. And 8.5 minutes later, the engine shut down, and you look at the Earth. And for every astronaut, the first time they look out the window, you hear this gasp. It's like, oh, wow, it's so beautiful. And it just takes your breath away. So maybe the one word to describe the experience would be, oh, wow, wow. That would be a good word. It's a wow moment up there.
So, what was it like when the shuttle took off?
When it takes off, we're sitting in seats like this, but we're laying down on our back, and the engines start coming up to full power, so you feel all the shaking and vibration, and right at the moment of liftoff, you feel a push in your back, like somebody has their hand right in the middle of your back, just pushing you up into the sky. And that's what the shuttle's doing, literally pushing us up. So it's really exciting. We get 3 times the force of gravity, so we're pushed back in our seat. Kind of feels like somebody heavy sitting on your chest, pinning you down. It's a little harder to breathe, but it's not painful. You're not gasping for air. So it's an exciting ride to get up to space.
So who was your inspiration to become an astronaut?
My inspiration, I had a number of them, the early astronauts. Alan Shepard was the first American in space. John Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth. He was from the state of Ohio, where I grew up. And Neil Armstrong, he was also from the state of Ohio. And he was a great inspiration for me. I was probably a little older than you are when he walked on the moon. And after I watched him on TV that night, I went outside and I looked up at the moon, and I couldn't believe Neil Armstrong was up there walking around. I just couldn't believe there were humans had made it to the moon. It was so exciting. So I wanted to follow in their footsteps.
So how many possessions were you allowed to take?
That's a really good question. We could take 10 personal items, and I think 10 items from organizations. So maybe from my university, or my son's school, you could take an item for them, and then 10 items for myself, and they had to be for your friends and family members. So I flew a gold necklace with the emblem from my mission for my mom. For my wife, I had a little pin, a little brooch for her. So many different things like that. Some watches I flew for my friends and family.
And I've heard about the woodpecker problems.
You did?
What did actually happen?
Okay, well, on my second flight, we were on Space Shuttle Discovery. 1 week before our scheduled launch, we were just getting ready to go into quarantine. They take us away from our families, put us in a special dormitory so we don't get sick, any germs from contact with other people. And I was just to go into quarantine that night, and I walked out of the simulator. We were practicing deploying a satellite that we'd be doing on the mission. And the trainer told me when I walked out, she says, "Don, I think your flight's going to be delayed. A woodpecker attacked your shuttle." And I laughed. I said, yeah, that's funny. And she said, no, I'm serious. A woodpecker attacked your space shuttle. And that big orange tank that you see here in the background, that's the big fuel tank for the shuttle. It's made out of aluminum, and the outside of it is covered with a foam insulation. And a woodpecker came in and started drilling holes into the foam. And after 3 or 4 inches, it would hit the aluminum, and it couldn't go any further. So it would move over a few inches and drill another hole until it hit the aluminum, and then another and another. And this one woodpecker ended up drilling 205 holes in that fuel tank. And it delayed our launch 1 month while they had to patch up everything. And then NASA put out these owls, plastic owls, like you see here. And they had big balloons, like beach balloons, with eyes like a hawk or an eagle on them to scare away the woodpeckers. Because the Kennedy Space Center, where we launched the shuttles, it's called the National Wildlife Refuge. And we protect all the wildlife. You can't harm any of the animals there. So we couldn't shoot the woodpecker. You could only scare them away. So they put these plastic owls, these big balloons with the eyes of a hawk or an eagle out at the launch pad just to scare away any woodpeckers, to make sure it never happened again.
And I've also heard that you did some experiments with like animals such as fish.
We take up a lot of animals, fish up there. We had goldfish, guppies, jellyfish, salamanders. I flew with some rats up in space. So we take up all kind of different animals to see how they'll behave and adapt. We had one experiment. It was a tank that had baby jellyfish in it. And you know jellyfish kind of squirt like that to swim through the water? Well, jellyfish will typically, they'll squirt to the top of their tank. They open their mouth, and with their mouth wide open, they fall with gravity and they feed. So they squirt to the top, open their mouth, and feed. Squirt to the top, open their mouth, and feed. Well, in space, they would squirt to the top, open their mouth, and nothing would happen, right? They have their mouth open, there's no food coming in, and they're wondering what's going on, and they had to learn new swimming behaviors to eat up in space. And some scientist was studying that. So some of it's a little crazy what we work on. One of the missions, not my own, but another shuttle mission, had a giant bullfrog. And the astronaut pulled the bullfrog out of the tank and let go of it in the air. And the bullfrog was scared. It wanted to jump away. So it's floating in the air and it's doing this. It just couldn't jump at all. It's just floating there like that. And the astronaut put it back in the tank because it was definitely afraid.
So do you have weather in space?
That's a great question. We're up above the atmosphere of the Earth. You know, most of the weather around planet Earth is in the first 10 miles above the Earth. Any further up above that, there's no weather. Most of the clouds you'll see are in the first 10 miles. And we fly 200 to 300 miles above. So we're up above the atmosphere. There's no clouds, there's no rain, there's no oxygen, there's nothing up there. It's just a vacuum of space. We can see the weather. I've flown over the top of giant hurricanes, and you can look right into the eye of the hurricane. But up in space itself, there's no weather.
Is that why the moon doesn't have any wind?
The moon doesn't have any wind because it has no atmosphere. It's got no oxygen, nothing like that. So Neil Armstrong's footprints on the moon, they're still there today. There's no rain, no wind, very little erosion. The only way those footprints are going to disappear are by little meteorites, little particles hitting the moon that would slowly mix up the soil.
So you got one last question, Esther, then?
Okay, so what was your spacesuit like? Was it like really heavy or?
The spacesuits that we wear for launch, they're orange, bright orange, and they weigh about 40 pounds, so 20 kilograms. And they're a little heavy, not too heavy at all. We have a heavy plastic helmet that we wear, but it's not too bad. The spacesuit that we wear to do a spacewalk, when we go outside the spacecraft, that one weighs a lot. That's like 120 kilograms, almost 300 pounds. So that one is really heavy. In the International Space Station or up in space at the space shuttle, it weighs 0 because everything is weightless there. But you take that same spacesuit and you put it on the moon, like Neil Armstrong's spacesuit, a 300-pound spacesuit on the moon only feels like it weighs 50 pounds. It's 1/6 the gravity there. We take that same spacesuit and we send an astronaut to Mars with 1/3 the gravity. That spacesuit's going to feel like it weighs 100 pounds. So we have to lighten that suit for you to go to Mars in. And we could do that, you know, if you make it so it's maybe half that weight, then when you get to Mars, it feels like 50 pounds and it's not too big of a deal. So the suits, the ones for launch and landing, the orange suits are not too heavy. The other ones are very, very heavy.
Thank you very much.
You did an excellent job. You know, you have to be a little nervous talking to me, right? You did